Okay, welcome to the sewing part of the tutorial. So we're going to start by knitting our neckline. We have cut out our neckline, but definitely we're not going to leave our neckline with the raw edge. So to knitting this neckline, I'm going to be using a bias strip. This is what we call a bias strip, 0.5. I know many of us, we have issues with fixing this, so we're going to fix this real quick, see how easy it is. So I have 1 yard with me. 1 yard would usually work for this neckline. So what do I need to do? The first thing I do is I open up the bias, I fold a triangle. You see what I did? I fold a triangle, and I usually start from the right side of my fabric. Remember, we have not done anything to the side, so I'm able to actually open up the fabric. So I'm going to be opening it up completely. I'm going to be opening this up, and then I'm going to be working on flat, so it will help me to be able to work very fast. Welcome to the sewing side of the tutorial. So we're going to be knitting our neckline. I have opened up my fabric to make sure this is nice and flat, and I'm going to be using the bias strip. I'm using the black color, one of the prominent colors on my fabric. So 0.5. I'm going to be using this bias to knitting up. So let us get into it. So first, I like to fold this bias. I open it up and fold it into a triangle, and I like to start on the right side of my fabric, the good side, and then the right hand side, because for those of my people that are left-handed, no offense please, I'm just saying that I like to start on the right side. And if you are left-handed, because I've had an experience where my student was left-handed, I'm like, can I start from the left? I said, why not? Of course you can. So remember to back tack. Yes, remember to back stitch. Starting from there. And then what I'll do is to make sure that the edge of my bias strip matches the edge of my fabric. And you see, whenever you are sewing a rounded edge, you don't pull straight, you kind of leave a little ease. You see where my finger is at, you see that I have a little bubble right there. So make sure you have a little ease. Make sure you don't have it all the way straight, because there's going to be tension. Whenever you're sewing a rounded edge, you need to actually apply some ease. So just watch closely as I sew, as I stitch. You would notice how I'm stitching and I'm at the same time applying some ease. So secondly, I am stitching on the line. There's a folded line of the bias. You can see that. So I'm actually stitching on the line. So alongside the same time, I'm pushing a little bit. So if you are new to this, you might want to maybe do a temporary stitch, maybe with a baste. You can do a basting stitch with your needle and thread to apply ease to it. But I mean, if you go slow enough, you can at the same time apply ease. And then you see that I'm not making it flat. I'm just going to push, add a little ease and push forward, and then go slowly. I'm gonna leave the video all the way so you notice that I did no magic along the line. So we are working together. So we keep putting the ease and sewing until we come and to the end, which we definitely align and back stitch. Okay, so after back stitching, you have finished the first stitch. The first stitch is done, so we need to do what we call a top stitch or an edge stitch. So we are going to be stitching on the back side. We're going to be stitching on there, and this is how it's going to be. We are going to stitch right here. We're going to be stitching right here, but it has to catch this seam allowance on the back. See, we're going to be stitching right here, right on here, but it has to catch on the back. So what I do for my beginner students is I try to sew on the back to make it easy for them. So I'm going to be turning this to the back side. So just turn to the wrong side. That's basically what we are doing. You don't need to freak out. Turn to the wrong side. So when you turn to the wrong side, you have, this is what you have. This is what your fabric looks like on the wrong side. You have one stitch. You have your bias strip. It will be extending out. So I want this to be as clear as possible. I get so many questions on this step. So what you need to do next is to extend out your bias strip. So we are going to be stitching right here, in between this stitch and the end of the seam allowance, this seam allowance, between this stitch. That's where we're going to be stitching, and then we are going to make sure that we don't stitch through over like that. So let's do it. Very simple, just follow. I'm gonna make sure you can see me clearly. Exactly. So your hand is gonna be, depending on, like I am using my zipper foot to stitch. I do this all the time. You know, as you stitch, you have different experiences. You are able to discover what works for you. I discovered using this zipper foot to stitch, especially on very small edges, works for me. So let's do it. So you back stitch wherever you are starting from. Make sure you press your reverse stitch and start stitching. So you are stitching right there. See me? Stitching right there. Inside the stitch. So make sure that as you are stitching, you are bringing out, you are spreading out your bias, because the last thing you want to do is to finish sewing and something is bundled up somewhere and you have to start ripping all you have sewn. It's like the joke my son told me yesterday. He said you will rip what you sew. So if you not all you sew, but if you sew it wrongly, you definitely will have to rip the same. Okay, so I hope you see that clearly. Yes, I hope you see that so clearly. So I'm actually stitching inside. I'm taking my time for us to go through this because I know a lot of people have issues. So make sure as you are stitching, you are adjusting your fabric and you are spreading out your bias, because sometimes what happens is it goes under, it stays under, and then you stitch unknowingly. So make sure you flatten that out. Watch your fingers. Keep going all around. I mean, it's not as we think it is, as tedious as it is. Once you do it for a couple of times, you will definitely get used to it. And definitely, it's not only a boubou that you can use this neckline application to knitting. The bias is very useful. Some people they make bias designs all over blouses and stuff. So we are at the end of the edge stitch or top stitch, depending on which country you are watching me from. And then the final knitting process. Okay, so this is what we have now. This is what we have. I don't know if you can see that. Beautiful, beautiful. So the last part of it is we fold. We now fold, you know, we fold. But we are now going to be, once we fold, you make sure that you see how a tiny little bit of fabric is showing up there. If you do it correctly, when you fold your bias strip, you should have that. So never should your bias be peeping out on the right side. Nobody must be able to see your bias on the right side. Okay, so here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. So you can see what I'm doing. I have to make sure everything is so clear to you. So this is more of an edge stitch. So I'm placing my presser foot at the very edge of the bias. And I'm just going to be stitching. So if you have actually added ease when you were initially sewing your bias, everything should lay nice and flat. If you actually added enough ease, everything should lay nice and flat. Okay, start stitching. Remember that when you are starting, always back stitch. So I'm actually stitching on the edge, so you don't need to freak out. You can go slowly. Believe me, I've done this a couple of times, so it's easy for me to actually go and stitch on the edge without pinning. I usually do advise my students and that if you are a beginner at this, you can pin. Please pin for you to have a perfect job. There is a way you can pin this your work. If I might just show you, there's a way you can pin. Once you pin this in this direction, for instance, once you pin in that direction, I don't know whether you see my pin, you can actually stitch gradually over the pin without the pin breaking your needle. Once you pin in that direction, it holds your stitch in place. And make sure everything is flat underneath me. Make sure you're using matching thread. I want to make sure that you have very good visuals of what I'm doing. So as I'm moving all around, I make sure I flatten out so that I don't have any pregnant thing on the other side. Trust me, you want to pin if you are a beginner at this. You want to pin it entirely. Invest that time to pin entirely. You're not gonna regret it. So also another thing I would share with you is that once we are done, let's make sure we cut off out. So we are getting to the end. I flatten out. So you notice that I don't have any excesses. See, no excess at the end, and that's because I did actually I added some ease at the beginning. So what I just did, I just backed it like twice and then cut off, and voila. Let me show you what we have before I cut off the video. So on our right side, see what we got. This is what we have. Very nice and clean. Do you see how neat the sewing is? And look at on the right side. See what we have. See what we have. So this is what we have on the neckline. That's how to neatly sew a bias into knitting the neckline.